one of my videos decided to go viral. And it was a video of me literally talking through the makeup that I loved. It was really important to me to make sure that the people that were following me were the right people. They want to see someone who's just like them. Let them see somebody who's just like them. Some of these women, I was the only person that they were talking to that day. And I realized the importance of me showing up for those women. Don't sell your soul to the devil because it's not worth it. Be the person you want to follow. If you can be that person, that's the answer.
Hey friends, welcome. It's Tracy Holland, your host on Potential to Powerhouse. So, have you ever wondered what the actual roadmap is for success? Today's conversation is one that I'm really excited to talk to you all about because this is not just hype. It's about how growth actually happens. So today's guest, Michelle King Keenan. About 15 months ago when I met Michelle, she had around 180,000 followers on Instagram specifically. Today, she's at 337,000 followers, and what matters most is how she got there. And that's today's conversation. So what I'll tell you about Michelle is she is the opposite of chasing trends, and she's not playing a character. But what she does do is she shows up consistently live and in real relationship with herself. And what we're going to hear about today, which is my favorite part of telling the story, is that Michelle did not just grow her audience. She built trust, she built momentum, and she came from a place that has since created a business model that she's going to share with you, but it is all rooted in connection. Michelle has mastered live stream selling in a way that feels very human and not performative, but she is strategic and thoughtful. Why? Because she's truly authentically choosing things that she loves. She's not about how much she can promote something or doing something that doesn't feel authentic. And in fact, she'll talk about the things that she doesn't resonate with just as openly as she'll talk about the things she does resonate with. So, Michelle, I'm really excited to have today's conversation. I want to welcome you on Potential to Powerhouse, and I want to talk with you about what surprised you, what's worked, what hasn't, and what you've learned about this journey about being such a public figure in the world of social media when I'm sure you are as surprised as your family is, as your husband is, that you've become such a phenomenon. So welcome.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm so excited. It's really interesting to look at the journey like from your perspective or from an outside perspective when you're just living it. And I'm really excited to reflect on it because I think that's how you grow. And, I've been doing this now for wholeheartedly since 2020. The pandemic hit and I committed to doing this wholeheartedly. And it's been an interesting ride. And it's really eye-opening because the world of influence is ever-changing. There is no manual to do it. Don't even get me started on being age appropriate for it. I'm 49 years old, in case anybody was curious, although that sometimes the internet loves to say that I look like I'm 70. You get your haters, you get all the things, but it's a really interesting world, and I think there is room for everybody. And I think it's really the next wave of not only like commerce, but a great way of community. And that's probably the biggest thing I've gotten out of showing up on the internet every day.
So let's take everyone back to 2020.
Okay.
That's kind of the beginning. And
Mhm.
I would say, you would say that this was from the beginning, from zero to all the growth and the trajectory. But I think for those listening, because we're probably getting people who are listening to this episode saying, how did she build that? And how do I
Mhm.
do it? And can I do it? And what does it take? So let's
Sure.
rewind and tell us how you got to this idea of deciding to show up publicly.
I had a career when I was in my 20s. I worked in advertising. And then I had my kids, and my husband and I made the big decision for me to stay home. I hit 40 years old, and I had a third grade daughter and a son that was in kindergarten. And I turned 40 and woke up in the middle of the night with an itch and found a lump in my breast. And within 4 weeks, I was in a chemo chair, diagnosed with stage 2 HER2 positive breast cancer, and had a double mastectomy, all the things. And in that moment, you know, you're a mother, you're living this one life, raising your kids, and now you have this life-threatening disease, and you lose your hair and you lose your breasts, and nobody talks really so much about how you lose your feminine identity with those things. I gained 60 pounds, and you're on all these steroids. You actually think you're gonna get skinny from chemo, but you don't. You know, the poison does a number on your skin, and to say that I felt horrible about my personal appearance would be an understatement. And I really struggled in this moment of life of being able to talk about that, like, because you should be grateful to be alive when so many other people haven't. But why can't you be mad and grateful at the same time? And I really struggled with how I looked. And so I started scrolling like Facebook and Instagram at the time and started getting tips and tricks from other women to cover up the parts of my face were damaged from chemo, or like different ways I could dress, to now I went from always having an hourglass shape to now I had an apple body shape because my reconstruction had limitations, and all these things, and I didn't know what to do. One day I was like, you could sit on the couch and you could cry about it, or you can figure out how to do something about it. And my kids were too young, especially having a daughter. I couldn't do that. And I was always moderately confident person. Never like a thin person, never, but I was moderately confident. And that destroyed my confidence. And so I started following a lot of these women that sold a specific MLM makeup brand. And I really connected to how they went live every day. And I would tune in, and there were certain women from another part of the country. Some of these women were like very religious, like it was just different. And I really connected with them. But I felt like there was a void because these women were about 10 or 15 years younger than me. And it was like, okay, like, why aren't there women my age? And at the same time, our kids are getting older and older, and, you kind of grip onto becoming friends with your kids' friends, their parents, right? And then your kids are starting to get older and go their own way. And I also realized in this 40 moment, it was kind of lonely. And I don't mean lonely, like, I meant, like, lonely in the sense of you kinda don't know what your role is next. So here I was, like, feeling bad about my personal appearance, and I just felt like nobody was really talking about this weird moment of the 40s and 50s of, like, what's next? You've played all these roles, and, like, where do you fall in, right? And so I decided one day that I was gonna show up. I just decided, I'm gonna do it. But I had to have a reason to do it. So I signed up for one of these makeup programs, like these, MLMs, and I did it in my car, and I called it Minivan Glam because as mothers, we're running everybody around at practice and to appointments and things, and you never take the time to put your face on, right? And what I knew about myself is if I felt good about my reflection, I was just nicer. I was better at all those jobs. If I took that 20 minutes to feel good about myself, I would be better to the other people that I take care of every day. And so I would keep my makeup in my car, and I would go live, and I would go live on Facebook, and I wouldn't have many people. I didn't make a single dollar. In fact, I lost money, but that was my way to see, like, can I do this? Can I feel comfortable in front of the camera? And over time, there were a bunch of women that started to join. And then that was like probably in 2019, I started dipping my toes in that. And then the pandemic hit. And I live in New York. And every day, Cuomo would come on the TV and give an update every day. And every day, right after that update, I showed up on the internet and went live and did my hair and my makeup, trying to encourage people to not get sucked into the funk of being home. Just because we're home, we are quarantined and we can't go anywhere, does not mean we have to feel like garbage about ourselves. Put your face on, and you'll feel better. And so I started to do that. And then I realized like more people were over on Instagram. So I was like, all right, let me dip my toes over there. I didn't know what an Instagram story even was, but I started to post. I didn't grow at all, but that was okay. It was okay. I just showed up every single day. And the more I showed up, the more, and it was in a live. And in the live, I was never selling anything. It was just to have conversation. And I would be putting my makeup on and doing my hair, and the women in the comments would start talking. I had also made a bunch of social friends at like these boutiques that would do live sales. And so some of those women would come over and continue the conversation. And we became friends in those live sales as shoppers, and over time, they started to grow. I started to grow a smaller audience, and then TikTok came out, and I was like, let me just save these videos and I'll put them on TikTok. And TikTok, I really started to grow kind of quick. And it was easy then to grow. And then one day, I will never forget this. It was the first weekend in December, and it was probably December of 2021. One of my videos decided to go viral. And it was a video of me literally talking through the makeup that I loved and what made me feel good. And the comments were horrendous. And I cried my eyes out, and I was mortified that my kids were going to see it. And I was like, I'm never doing this again. And then I was like, no, you're going to do this. And I showed back up 2 days later, and my video in return was responding to it and saying, you know what? Like, I heard you, but I'm still going to do it because it makes me feel good about me. And if you don't want to be here, that's okay. And so then I started doing lives over there, and I started to want to make this an income. And I realized as I pitched myself at that time, nobody respected TikTok. They only respected Instagram. What were your Instagram numbers? What was your engagement? I didn't even know what that meant. And, quite frankly, everyone had a different definition of what those were. And so I decided I couldn't do two apps the right way. I needed to commit to one over the other. And if I wanted to try to make this a career, I needed to commit to Instagram. And I did. And I started out with like 5,000 followers. Maybe when I hit 10,000 followers, it's like the biggest day of my life. It was amazing. And I started to try to make friends within like the influencer community. And that was humbling, but I still continued to show up live every single day. And in that, I started to become friendly with the women. And I realized that some of these women, I was the only person that they were talking to that day. And I realized the importance of me showing up for those women. There were some real lonely birds there that didn't have any family, any friends. And when I realized if I had to take a day off and couldn't do it, I found myself wondering about them and worrying about them. And I think that made me a little different than most of the people that I was following because I just like caring about them and I liked getting to know them. And what I really loved was seeing them talk to each other. And I started noticing that I could walk off the camera for 5 minutes to go let the dog out or answer the door. And I realized that nobody even noticed. I noticed the women were talking to one another. And that's when a bell like went off in my head. And it was like, this has to stay this way. You have to continue to stay live. And that's always been the basis of my presence on the internet. And my lives have never been to teach anything, and they've never been to sell anything. I hardly even talk about the products that I use unless someone asks, but it's always to engage with them. It's always to have a conversation. And sometimes it's funny and silly, and sometimes it's deep. And I think a lot of people resonated with my cancer story. I've been very vulnerable and open in sharing that. But I also show up on the internet every morning in my bathrobe with no makeup on and no filter because that's who I am. And I think if you show up day one on who you are, people will take you a lot more serious. They want to look at somebody and say, oh, I have that same fat roll, you know? I have that same bathrobe that's all dusty. They want to relate to somebody. They want a regular person. They want somebody who has a hoard of a mess in the corner because that's just real life. And I've never hid that about myself. And I think that's what has started to grow the community, and is what has grown to engage in one another, and them to ask, like, what are you using? What are you wearing? And things of that nature.
Hey, gorgeous friends, just for a second, if you would do me a huge favor, if Potential to Powerhouse has touched your heart, inspired you, made you pause, made you think differently, been a resource for you, would you do me the favor to right now take a second to give us a rating and review? It makes such a difference, and we so appreciate hearing from you. Thank you. High five. And so, that crisis moment where you were on TikTok and all that negative feedback came in that one day and you woke up and you saw that, talk us through that decision point for you about staying active and saying, I'm going
Yeah,
to do this.
just validate the moment that it is crushing to hear what people have to say about you. And I will be very honest, even today, I really care about what people think about me. I do. It's just my nature. Um, and it's not so much that I care that they don't like how I look. I care about what they think of my character. Um, and I think that was, there's a lot of growing and learning and accepting that, you know, people want to blast you because they just want to be heard. So understanding that negative comments don't necessarily mean a reflection of you. Sometimes it's the squeaky, it's that saying, the squeaky wheel. What is it?
Gets the
You know,
grease.
Guess the grease. They want the attention. They want the engagement. And I think one of the things, I've done in my lives, I will never go out of my way to embarrass somebody, right? I will never go out of my way to say something rude, but I also set the tone of expectation of behavior in my lives. And you don't get to come on my page and talk to me in that manner. And that's okay. And in the past, where I have women come on and will say, "Oh, you have so much makeup on, you're terrible." And, there are women that will, and I never encourage anyone, but I always say, first of all, welcome. You're obviously new here. I come on here every day and I do my makeup for myself. I don't do it for you. I don't do it for her. I don't do it for her. I do it for me. And if you actually sit here in the comments for a few minutes, you'll see that there's a lot of really lovely women here who just want to make friends. And you're welcome to stay here as long as you keep your comments to yourself. And I have set that tone, and now it never happens, because hardly, because I've set that boundary there. Like, and I expect that of the women in the comments to each other as well. You're not going to fight in my comments. You're not going to argue in my comments. This is a place of respect, and everyone has a bad day. And if you have to leave, you can be welcome back tomorrow, but I think addressing bad behavior in the right way is imperative. And also showing up is imperative to letting people know that they're not going to get you down. And listen, some days are harder than others. Like, they really are. I do want to say that virality is not always good. Um, Everyone wants a viral video, right? Everyone wants millions of followers. I'm going to tell you right now, sometimes I wish I was back to 50,000 followers. I think the power of micro influencers is way more impactful than this big, broad audience. I think a smaller community is much more intimate and can be just as, you know, successful income wise as it could be to be, you know, someone with millions of followers. I think, you need the right video to go viral. I happened to, I showed up every day, and I committed one year. The year that I really committed, I did 3 videos a day,
Wow.
and I set up a formula. 2 of those videos could have a sales component, but one video could have no sales component. And I did that for 30 straight days.
And what made you decide that formula? What was that about?
I just started watching what other people were doing, and everyone kept saying, you needed to do these certain amount of videos a day. So I'm like, okay, I need to do a certain amount of videos. And a big part of who I am is like showing you how you can dress your lumps and bumps, like how to get out of that mindset of God, I can wish I could wear that to, okay, I love that. How can I make it work for me? And it was also in the time where I was coming out and really sharing these, I was much heavier than I am right now. And I think there was like it was the body positivity movement, right? And I got called fat phobic and things like that because I was showing women how to disguise like their tire here or things like that. And what I think a lot of creators that are younger don't realize is that our generation is grew up in diet culture and grew up having, me saying I want to hide things doesn't mean I'm ashamed at how I look or what I weigh. It's what bothers me the most, right? What is the things I'm fixating on? And I tried to connect with other women on that. Like, I know you're staring at your stomach, right? And let's figure out a way that you can style yourself so that when you look at yourself in the mirror, you look at your face and you smile, and it wasn't so much about being a weight or a size. It was more about loving who you were in that moment. And just because you've spent the last 20 years letting yourself go because you were doing all these things doesn't mean you don't deserve to feel good about yourself. And I think, you know, everyone said do the 3 videos a day, right? But they also said make those videos less than a minute. Well, I am the anti-minute person because I'm a chatty Cathy. And for me to and that's when TikTok finally came out with like their 3-minute video. And I was like, oh, this is amazing. But what I noticed was, for me to get people to want to click my links, they also needed to just relate to me and to know that I wasn't just there because I really wasn't. I wasn't just there for you to buy my link. I want to show you what to do with it when you get home. And so those were those videos. So that third video that didn't have a sales component, it was basically like, all right, I bought it. Now what do I do with it? Right? Or I would show somebody how to not have a uniboob in a dress or things like that. And one day I felt like the algorithm finally understood me. And that was the video that went viral. And it was a video of me showing how you can mask having a big stomach going from an apple shape to an hourglass with 3 simple steps. And all of a sudden, my numbers started to go up and go up. And I grew double the audience in like 4 months. And at first, I was like, all right, these have to be bots, right? How could this be? And it wasn't. Like, I was clicking on these people and they were real people. And that's the virality you want. Don't put those things out don't put the funny jokes out on the internet and in the mix of your video, of your journey that doesn't represent who you are, because those are the ones that will go viral and then you'll get the wrong audience. It was really important to me to make sure that the people that were following me were the right people. Because if you have you could have 1 million people that are the wrong people, and you could have 5,000 of the right people. And those right people are worth so much more than that million. And if you let yourself just not get sucked into the numbers, it's freedom, right? I realized I wasn't getting called from a manager. I still don't have a manager. Nobody, I got denied 6 times from Like to Know It. 6 times. Another influencer friend had to make a call for me. I had the numbers like no, and I think it was because of my age and because my videos weren't aesthetic and I didn't show up filtered, and still to this day, it's kind of like I just have decided like I'm going to create my own measure of success. And, I set certain rules for myself. And I think if you stay to your own rules, you can grow. It doesn't have to look like what everybody else is doing. And if you let go of that, you can do it. And I did that formula for a month. And so it was the 2 videos, and then the third one never had a sales component. And I had friends that were in the influencer space that had 500,000 followers call me and say, "What are you doing?" And then they did it and they grew. And listen, the algorithm is always changing. And so sometimes that works and sometimes it doesn't. But that's how I grew. And I never stepped away, though, from going live every single day. And there'll be days now where I don't put videos out, but I will show up live every day,
And so
every day.
when you did this 3 video sequence, were you doing that on Instagram or were you doing
Yes.
that on TikTok?
So I walked away from TikTok because at the time, TikTok started to roll out TikTok Shop. And in the beginning, TikTok Shop was junk. And TikTok Shop, my philosophy as a creator, and I stand true to this from day one to now, I will never share something that I have not physically touched, put on my body, or use. Never. Ever, ever, ever. So when TikTok Shop came out, it was all these random brands. Most of it was junk, and I had never used those things. And TikTok was pushing all of those videos. And at the same time, I was trying to get jobs. I was trying to get brands to notice me. And I knew I had to put all of my eggs in one basket. So I walked away from TikTok. I had about 200,000 followers there. And I walked over to Instagram and I embraced that 10,000 follower. And I was like, I'm going to do this. And that's what I did. So now, this past year, TikTok Shop has changed. It has evolved. Real brands are there. And that's been a whole new ballgame. And so now I'm trying to do both again at the same time. But I'm in a place, I'm in a much better place than where I was before because I'm not so worried about chasing one or the other or the numbers or things. I'm comfortable where I am. I don't need 1,000,000 followers. I don't. I don't need a manager giving me bazillion-dollar deals. Yes, would I love a great I'm not a millionaire influencer. I'm not. And I don't even consider myself an influencer. I'm just an oversharer on the internet. I am the human embodiment of Oprah's favorite things. And I have been like that since I was a teenager. I have always been like that. Somebody who just loves sharing things that I love. And as long as I stay I will never sell out for the dollar because I'm a terrible liar and I just could never come on here and share something if I didn't love it. And if I try something new and I love it, but then in 4 weeks I kind of decided I hate it, I'll come back on and be like, "Guys, I screwed up. After 4 weeks, this mascara was a piece of trash and I threw it out and I apologize." You know, also like understanding the means of your audience, right? Like really listen to who they are. Like I understand that my audience is not buying Gucci bags every day. They are women who have money to spend and are willing to spend, but you know, they want to know what they're spending it on and they don't want to be taken advantage of. And so once you start, like, I think having a community and listening to them really lends itself to do that selling, to curate all of your other content for a career because you sat down and had a conversation and you listened. If you just listen, your community can really dictate how you evolve professionally and make an income. Like I'll have someone reach out to me and say, we would love to work with you. We'll send you this. And I'll think about it. Is this something that my audience would even resonate with? And sometimes it's not. And there have also been things that I don't necessarily resonate with, but I know my audience would really love. I had a jewelry brand reach out to me that was all about commemorating the loss of loved ones, like rings that you could put ashes in. And while it wasn't necessarily something that I needed in my life, I was like, you know what? I think my audience would really appreciate the thoughtfulness of this whole brand. And so I bring things in like that. I think you have to stay in tuned with them and stay grounded. And the minute you don't, you lose them.
So, Michelle, talk us through for those listening saying, I think I can do this. And what I want every single person to listen to very carefully and hear is Michelle is the opposite of what is everyone else doing, and I'm going to chase it. And because of that, she has had tremendous success. And I think she would share with you this is the way she makes income for her family, and her family is supported through this effort, but was not her intention when she signed on to start this process. And so, every one of you who has a unique point of view and a unique voice, keeping that authenticity and staying uniquely you is the magic. It is why you will have followers. It is why people will choose to show up.
Right.
And, Michelle, you've always said to me from the beginning that your intention was to build relationship and community first. And
Mhm.
you've kept that at the forefront every single time. The conversation is the platform for which it's almost like you're gathering hundreds, if not thousands of women at any given time on a live, and you're having this like warm and loving conversation, but also sometimes funny and relevant to cultural things that are happening, like what's happening on The Golden Bachelor or what's happening in the world of everything. Like, let's talk about it. And that's what's consistently brought people into your universe and wanting to stay there and be part of it. If someone's sitting here listening to this saying, I want to start doing this, and then how do you monetize it? Like, what does it mean to have brands come to you and say they want to do something with you? What does it mean to tag them? And how does that whole
Mhm.
thing work?
I mean, I am like the perfect. I'll tell you exactly how. You have to be annoying. So when I started doing this, nobody knew who I was. Nobody cared who I was. There was a jewelry brand that I kept getting fed ads on um, during the pandemic, actually. And I loved her jewelry. And I bought her jewelry and I kept tagging her every time I shared it. And I would reach out to her and I would say, let me know when you want to work together. I would love to work together. And she would just be like, yeah, yeah, yeah. And then one day she's this beautiful, like, I mean, talk about a woman who straightens other women's crowns. She's very thick Russian accent. She's like, Michelle, I hate influencers. I hate them. I don't want, and I was like, okay. I'm like, fair enough. I'm like, but I'm going to keep tagging you because I love your stuff. And I kept tagging her. And then one day she reached out to me and she's like, all right, screw it. Let's do it. And I'll pay you a commission if you sell anything. And I was like, oh my God, I was so excited. And then there was another brand, a national brand. And it was a brand that I leaned into when I was sick. It's called Natural Life, and it's a beautiful brand, beautiful kimonos and head wraps and everything boho and amazing. And I would tag them constantly. And they heard me share a story about how I would wear their kimonos and their scarves during my phase of waiting for my reconstruction. And it was something that I could lean into to make me feel pretty in a really dark time. And the owner, Patty, reached out to me and she was like, I've never worked with anybody like you, but like, let's do something. And she like flew me down there and it was like so big. So my biggest piece of advice is tag everybody. Um, Another story is I was a member of this perfume subscription, and Tracy's going to smile because this is how I met Tracy. But I would get this subscription of perfume, and I got this perfume in the mail, and I instantly loved it. And I looked at the name of it. The only way I could find to buy it was like from this brand's direct website. I'd never heard of it. So I just told the world, I'm like, this fragrance is outstanding. And I also wore it to take my dog to the vet. And the vet was so handsome and he commented on my perfume. And I'm like, girls, you need to go buy this perfume. And I literally tagged the brand and I put a link to their website. I wasn't making a single dollar off of it. And 48 hours later, I got an email from someone that worked at the company, and he was like, "Who are you? Because you just sold 250 bottles of a perfume that's not even on the market yet." And they wanted to work with me, and he said, "I want you to meet some of my business partners." And then he actually introduced me to Tracy and to work on other things. And so my point being is it doesn't have to look like everybody else, right? Just start tagging people. Just start tagging them. Introduce yourself. You don't have to have a media kit. You don't have to have formal numbers. You can just send an email and say, "Hi, my name is Michelle, and I love your stuff. And if there's any way you would want to work together, I would love to entertain any idea." Don't let anyone tell you that it's not okay to work for commission. Don't let anyone tell you it's not okay to trade goods for exposure. At the very least, yeah, I know goods, sweaters and t-shirts don't pay your bills, but it gives you experience. It gives you an opportunity to practice. There is no wrong way to do this. In fact, I've had influencers tell me, like, "You're crazy. Stop putting your time into your community. You're being ridiculous. You should be charging a flat fee." If I had taken that advice, number one, the amount of money I was making off of commission was 15 times what I would have made if I was charging. And I realized I'm confident enough to work on commission. I can do the job. I'm not afraid to do the job. And then I did take a step away a little bit from community because I thought I was like being stupid and being ridiculous because I looked different. And I missed it. I really missed it. And I realized, like, that's what makes me different. Why are people going to follow me over Mary Jo or Susan when we're all sharing the same blazer, right, from Amazon? What's going to make me different? I care about how the blazer looks on you. I'm going to tell you what size you need to get. I'll get on the internet and I'll measure every part of my body if it helps you be able to not return something. And think about who you want to follow. Be the person you want to follow. If you can be that person, that's the answer. And don't worry about trying to shoot your shot. I've had brands be awful to me in response. And yes, I have a chip on my shoulder. And one day I'm going to have that pretty woman moment and walk in and be like, "A big mistake when you call me." You know, I've had small businesses completely take advantage of me. I've also partnered with some brands, and while they were treating me well, they were not treating my community well. I got word of how they were doing their customer service and talking to some of the women. And then I started following their content, and I didn't like how they were presenting themselves. And I would never publicly like burn anybody. I just quietly walked away. Recently, I also just saw a brand that I've worked with do something I didn't agree with ethically. Did I burn them? No, but I'm aware and I walked away. So you just have to remember what matters to you and don't get caught up in the numbers, the money. Don't sell your soul to the devil because it's not worth it. Because in the end, they're the only ones that are benefiting from it. You're just a transaction. What you're building online, that's your brand. That's who you are. So you need to always keep that in the forefront.
Totally. So if someone's listening right now and she's saying, okay, I'm going to start live streaming in 2026, I'm going to do this and I'm going to start and I'm going to be consistent. I'm going to show up every single day. What would you say matters most? Is it her consistency? Is it the same time, same day, same place? Is it energy? Is it her storytelling or something else entirely?
I would make sure that it's daily. It doesn't have to be the same time. It helps certainly in and around the same time, whether there's one person watching or 30 people watching. You talk the same way to that one person the way you would to the 30 people, and you make everybody feel heard and listened to. There'll be days where you turn that camera on and there's going to be nobody, and you just keep talking. If you feel like you're in a bad mood and you don't have much to say, let them know. "I'm in a bad mood. I'm having a bad day." Like, you guys are going to have to help me out. I don't even know what to talk about. If you're going to put a hair dryer on, right? I always say to the girls, I'm like, we're going to play a game, right? We're going to do this or that, right? So here I can blow dry my hair because I can't talk over the hair dryer. And then you see everybody interacting. Let the women drive the conversation in the comments. Every live is going to be different, right? Nobody wants to be ignored. And so if you show up every day, I know you don't want to be ignored either, but if you start showing up every day, even if that first month nobody's watching, somebody's watching. And one day somebody's going to watch, and you just keep showing up. Because if you decide one day, oh, I don't think anyone's going to watch, then they're not. I mean, if you don't show up, you can't change the story. So I would say always show up. I would say be yourself. Don't you dare start with a filter, because the day you forget to put that filter on, it's over. Don't be ashamed. Don't be ashamed. I mean, everybody, why are we not showing real life? Like people want, you've seen this whole evolution of influencers, right? Over since COVID, right? So much of it was aspirational, right? You wanted to follow the women with the beige houses and the beautiful furniture. I didn't fit into that mold. My husband and I's design aesthetic to our house is literally, we want people to want to take a nap when you walk in our house. Like, that is our design aesthetic. So I don't appeal to that. I have clutter everywhere. I'm a pack rat. But over time, the world has gotten crazier and crazier. The economy went from here to here. And now people are angry at aesthetic and beautiful. They want to see someone who's just like them. Let them see somebody who's just like them. And there's nothing wrong with going to the Walmart on a Tuesday in a prom dress, if that's what you want to do. Like, just, everyone always says, "Oh, I have nowhere to wear this. I don't have anywhere to wear this. You guys see my life every day. I wear it for me." They're going to talk about you anyway. So you could either look like you crawled out of a dumpster, or you can wear, your elegant, dress that you'd wear to the Oscars. You're doing it for you. And I think that will give anybody success. Showing up, being yourself always, and being honest. You don't always have to be peppy. You don't always have to have a smile on your face. It's okay to cry on the internet. Also, there'll be days where I maybe barked at somebody, and read their comment wrong, or, and overreacted. Be willing to apologize. Just be human. People want humans, especially now, because they don't, people are afraid of AI. They're afraid of, and I don't blame them. Just be a human being. They want to connect with humans.
And so, just for practical purposes, if someone's going to say, how much time does this really take? And can I keep my day job and do this while I'm building my momentum, which is really what I always advise entrepreneurs, especially women entrepreneurs, to do, is to keep their safety net and to build the second business in the afternoon, evenings, weekends. Talk to us about just the practical nature of, when you live stream, are you saving those videos and converting them later to videos you post, or do you do a separate reel or separate content?
So every app is different, right? So you can go live on TikTok and it's amazing, but you cannot repost a live, right? So you lose that. That is contingent on your live audience. Then you have Instagram. You can go live and post it later. But the problem is that people cannot see the comments when they watch a replay. So it's important to always read a comment out loud before you respond, and to read the conversation as you are live streaming, to make an Instagram one work. Now, Facebook, you can post a live and you can see the comments, but you can't repurpose it. So every app has their challenges and their advantages. I primarily rely on Instagram. And so what I do is, there's a couple of things. Like I said, my lives are never about selling anything, but there are a lot of women who want to know what was the makeup I was using, what was the hair tool I was using. So there's a couple of ways that I do that. There's a company owned by Meta called ManyChat. And I think a lot of people don't realize when you see so Instagram doesn't allow you to put any kind of clickable link in any kind of video, whether it's live or a reel, right? So that's one disadvantage right there. You can't even copy and paste a link. So it's a real challenge. So ManyChat, what that does is it allows you to, I pay for the service. And if someone said, I write in the caption, like comment link, and I'll send you the link for all the products in here if you'd like them. And it's a really beautiful service because it then gets sent to your followers' direct messages. And they have that link forever until they delete it. So they could be watching you on their lunch hour and later on they remember, oh, I wanted to get that, and so that lives there. And then I do that for a lot of my lives, not all of them, but if there was a live where there was a lot of women asking, then I would. What I usually do is post live every day. I go then into my Instagram stories, say, we just finished our live. This is what we did. These were the main products that I used today. If it's a brand that isn't on, like an LTK or something, I'll type out everything I used, provide a link and a discount code if I can. And that's, people know at this point, they know I'll just go to her stories later and I can get it. Or I'll do a really great time saving. Like if you're talking about trying to build this while having a day job, right? You can, I feel like we need to do a whole podcast on how time saving shortcuts that you can do to create content. So what you can do very easily is take any of those, you could take those stories that you made and Instagram will make them into a reel for you. You don't even have to do any editing. And you can post that and then I'll add one of those links. So it's a quick recap and it gets put in the algorithm. So now that is now getting me out also to other women who may not have seen the live. And so if you start getting into those consistencies, so you do your live, do a recap in your stories, and then follow up with a reel, if you're consistent with that, and it really doesn't take a lot of time, if you have someone showing you some little quick shortcuts, there is no reason to refilm things, recut things, all of it. And don't worry about editing. Stop worrying about editing. It's just be yourself and just say, I got this box. I'm going to, you didn't get time to iron it. Doesn't matter. Put it on and link it. If you don't have a lot of time to go live, get up at half an hour earlier. I have a friend. She has a day job in a bank. She gets up every morning at 4:30. She does her daily deals for Amazon. She posts them and then she gets ready in her Instagram stories. And she'll link it later, but then later on, she'll take those stories and make them into videos and post them later. Or sometimes she'll even hop on a live. Your lives don't have to be an hour. They can be 10 minutes. Make it work for you. Don't set up unreasonable expectations because then you're not going to enjoy it. I think social media is an opportunity to create the job that you wanted the most. This is your opportunity to be yourself and really communicate things that bring you joy. It could be that you're communicating a hobby, you know, and you're showing everybody how you crochet every day. Eventually you could end up having a, partnership with a yarn brand, and it doesn't have to be big brands. It can be small brands. Small business is so powerful, so powerful. Also, don't treat every brand or every opportunity like you have a deal. Fake it till you make it. Share the things, share the link. People will think you have a deal with them. You probably don't.
So smart.
That's okay.
So smart.
Fake it until you make it. And not only that, then that makes that brand say, you know what? Maybe we should call Michelle. Maybe we could do something with her, And so just don't pigeonhole yourself into thinking it has to be one way or another and that you can't do it. You can do it. Make sure that you set up within your means. And then as time goes on, if you start making the extra income and you can walk away from those other things, that's great. But there is really no reason why you can't do both, as long as you are realistic about what you can actually do. Don't bite off more than you can chew.
So juicy. Okay. So we're going to do a follow up podcast because I think what you just said is so important and relevant, which is what are the shortcut ways of maximizing your content and cutting out all of the heavy lifting, because women our age who are in our age bracket who have so much to share, they're authentic, they know what they know, they're holding the purse strings for the household. They're 80% of consumer spending is coming from the women in the house making purchase decisions. And so each of these women listening today who are thinking, wow, even if I could earn 50,000, 100,000 in income from a side income, not even from my day job, if I could see a way to get there, it would be so worth my time to start investing in doing this. Even if in year 1 I earn and make a goal for year 1 of $10,000. Do you know how much you earned in your first year? Do you remember?
I mean, pennies,
Pennies.
pennies.
Okay.
But there is value to grocery money. You know what I mean? Like it doesn't have to look like one big, that everything matters and everything counts.
It so does.
You can slowly, gradually, like I said, I don't have $1,000,000 Walmart deals or anything like that. You have to figure out there are other avenues and other ways. And you also don't have to be someone who's selling something.
Yeah.
You could be creating a community based on a hobby, but that can then monetize. There are lots of different avenues to create monetization.
Yes. And I want you all to hear what Michelle just said. Going in live streaming does not mean you have to hard sell something. You could be talking about things you love. You could be talking about where you just traveled and tagging links and having affiliate payments, having links that pay you commission is another way of earning income. And letting people opt in, saying, wow, I just heard about this from Michelle, or I was watching Sally on her live stream and she tagged this. I went and got it because I was so intrigued. I had never seen that before. And I'm so grateful I watched it because now I'm going to try it. Monetizing those recommendations does not have to be selling, guys. It can just be an endorsement. How often are you at dinner with a girlfriend and you say, oh my gosh, I just went to the spa and I just had this facial at this one spa and it was insane. I
Yeah,
highly recommend it. And what does she do next? She gets up and says, I'm going to go to the spa and try it myself. Social
exactly.
media is the platform for which you can share those ideas and opportunities and get paid for it by other people taking your recommendation and trying it for themselves. This is the new way of living and sharing. And yet, if you think about it, this is an age old, right? Back in
Yeah.
1,000 years ago, we were all sitting by the fire, roasting our meat over the fire.
Yeah, exactly. And I mean, I know that we're running out of time, but this is a perfect example. I'll share something, right? I'll put on an outfit and I'll share it. And then I'll get someone say, well, there were 4 reviews that were really bad about that. And I say, okay, I'm a real life human being standing in front of you. You see it on my body and I'm explaining it to you how it feels on me, you see it visually, how it looks on me. Do you know those 4 women that just wrote that pissed off comment? You know what I mean? Women are jaded, especially our age group are jaded. But I think a lot of them are now saying, okay, they'll realize like I am a real life human review,
Yeah.
right? And so then now like I'll get people sending me messages saying, "Have you tried this?" And I'll say, "I haven't, but let me order it and I'll let you know." And I'll do that for a lot of things because I don't share things I don't, it's not that I don't trust them, but I need to be able to talk about it confidently about something. And I think people at this point are so used to me saying, it clung to my lumps and bumps. It wasn't great. Or I would size up if you want to make it work. But it's an opportunity. It's like a new way to see a real life human review, right? As long as you make sure that you are presenting authenticity.
Totally.
And it's just the new way of doing things.
Totally. Well, guys, if this captivated you, if you feel inspired, if today is the day you're like, hell, I can make extra funds for my family and I'm going to, I already give everyone my opinion about everything anyway. Why not make this an opportunity to have a greater audience and connection with others? If this is inspiring to you, look out for podcast 2, which we will do in 2026. Thank you, Michelle, so much for being here
Thank
today.
you.
I love your personal journey. It's such a pleasure to work with you. It's every day I look forward to seeing you and talking with you and thinking about what kind of product we could co-create for your community because you have such a heart-led approach to surprising and delighting your followers. That is your mission.
Thank you.
That's your heart mission is,
Thank you. I appreciate that.
yeah, how do I surprise and
Recognition.
delight my followers? Because I owe it to them to bring them exactly what I think in the moment. And it's so cool to watch and be part of. And so I'm super grateful for the privilege of being able to work with you and do that. And
Likewise.
thank you everyone for listening and signing off.
Thanks for having me.
Bye.
Bye.